Well, hello. Welcome back to the Well After Hours part 2 of Moving from Pain to Great Purpose with Passion with my guest, Tamika Robinson and Tamesia Scott. We're going to pick up where we left off. Go right ahead, Tamika.
So we were basically talking about how I was angry with God for what was going on, and how Diamond had came to me and she asked me about starting a business. So it woke something up in me, and I said, if this is what what it's going to take for my baby to get well, then this is what I'm going to do. And so basically we started buying puppets. AmeriCorps made us a puppetry art stage, and we got funding, like a grant from United Way for the most creative idea for the community. Wow. And that's how we started it, with a very small grant and just local people helping us out. We had people in our community that helped us with self-defense to teach kids. Beautiful. We did something for Rad Kids. I got certified in Rad Kids to teach kids how to do self-defense and how to get away from a predator. We had the detectives for this sex assault unit come out when we spoke, and other friends and family members would come out and share their stories as well. And we would actually print out pictures of sex offenders in the neighborhoods that we were doing our speaking engagements in. Mm-hmm. And we would categorize them. So we would let people know that even though this person is identified as a sex offender, really their offense is that they had sex with somebody that was a year or younger than them. So we tried to educate the community so that they wouldn't think.
Because when you hear sex offender, you just think blanket, right. Just like,
And so I think God had put me in a funny, awkward situation, because I had been a counselor for sex offenders. So before this had happened to my daughter, I was put in a position where I was able to start seeing from their side and their family's point of view. So I didn't want people to be confused, because I wouldn't want a family member of mine to be accused of something like this.
Yes.
And this is really not the true situation. But I also wanted people that were actually real sex offenders to be, get the fate that was for them.
Yes, absolutely.
And so this whole situation, we helped in the community, and we had kids come to us and say, well, that happened to me when I was in Sunday school, or that happened to me when I was at school, or that happened to me. So it started a situation where people could come out and speak to us, and then people in our community knew who we were and what we did, so they would ask us to come. They would tell us about families that needed our assistance, and me and Diamond would go to the home. I would speak with the parent. Diamond would basically play with the child and kind of talk to them when she was young, and then we would bring them together to talk about what happened, so that they would feel safe, and that they shouldn't be ashamed. You didn't do anything wrong.
Absolutely.
And family members would tell us, we were walking on pins and needles until you guys came, because we didn't know how to talk to our child about the situation, and our child didn't feel comfortable talking to us. But now that they realize that there's other people out there that this has happened to them, and that they're not afraid to share their story. Now my child is coming telling me things that I didn't even know. So it now makes me aware of other things that I should have been aware of in the first place. So basically educating our community and stuff like that.
Which is fantastic. This is with the Me Too movement and all these. Now people say, oh, they're coming out of the woodwork. That's because they've had to be silent for so many years, because of the stigma, because of the shame, because of guilt. And so thank God, that the work that you're doing to help, because there's still a lot of people who are still stuck in that place.
Yes.
And so I can't wait to have Diamond share your story and how you felt, because I look at you now, such a beautiful young woman, healthy, you know what
Yes.
I mean? Look, mentally and emotionally. At 12, I can't even imagine that at that young age that you were saying, 9 years old, and to be able to say, Mommy, why don't we help other children? Isn't it something how children communicate? They have such a heart that when they hurt, they want to help other children. So, I mean, like getting from there to where you are now, what's been the journey for you?
So it has been a very long process, but it has, and a process that I'm honestly still continuing to go through. So my mother mentioned that I was 9 years old. What she didn't say is that my perpetrator was actually 18, so double my age. And it was someone that I didn't know. A lot of times they say it's someone that the person may be familiar with, someone that I had only met one other time. But in the urban community, we often say, oh, we will relate to, even if we barely know them, like, oh, that's my cousin, that's my So it was someone who we kind of jokingly was like, oh yeah, well, like we're family, even though like we definitely weren't related. So I'm very aware and observant. Even when I was young, I've always been that way. So it kind of started out with him just trying to play with us at like when we were playing basketball. Now, it was a lot of young kids playing basketball and this older guy just trying to inch his way in. So him and his mother ended up staying the night. That night, it was my sister's graduation party. She was graduating from high school. No, sorry, maybe college, high school, college, I don't remember. But it was her graduation party. I remember that, and during the summer, and the guy ended up spending a night, but it was like they have a 2-story house, so it was like adults were mostly upstairs, and then children were kind of like downstairs in the playroom and everything. So that's kind of when it happened. And there was a guy who I grew up who lived near my dad's house, and we were very close. He was my age, and he was one of my best friends. And unfortunately, he had to experience that with me. So he wasn't necessarily sexually abused himself, but he saw everything that happened to me.
Oh my goodness.
And so him being there, and then the guy still stayed the night. It wasn't until, I want to say this happened Friday night, and I stayed the full weekend, and I knew that if I told my father that he would honestly try to kill the guy.
Him. I know.
So
exactly, and they count on that.
Yeah.
They count on that. They know that,
Yeah, so that's why I was like, I did not know who to go to. And I was like, my mom's not here. I didn't feel comfortable telling my stepsister or my stepmom. So I kind of just held it to myself the whole weekend until I got back to my mom. As soon as I got in the car with my mom, and my mom, she knows her children, of course, all parents do. And she could tell something was wrong with me. And all she had to say was, Diamond, what happened? Diamond, what's wrong? And I broke down crying in the car, and just told her what happened. My dad, because they used to meet up at this gas station. My dad had went into the gas station to get like some snacks before we had left, and I remember him coming out still not knowing. My mom had told him, and he just got so frustrated he literally started hitting the stop sign and busted his knuckles and everything. So my mom was in a good place. She was like, even though it's been a couple of days, we need to get you to the hospital. We need to get all these tests done, and everything. But she was, like she said, she was very frantic. Like she was distraught,
Yes,
like
yes.
how was she supposed
After
to react?
that, yeah.
So I'm thankful that she was even, aware, like, okay, let's go to the hospital now.
Yes.
My dad, I feel like he was upset with me for not telling him or not saying anything, but I knew, like deep down, I knew.
Yes, you know what would happen.
Yeah, and I felt like I couldn't necessarily live with that.
Yes, exactly.
So I was like going through all this and then that. So not only did I have to experience it firsthand, it felt like after going through like the court system and everything, I had to almost relive
Live it
each and
over
every
and
time.
yes.
Because of course everyone wants you to tell the story.
Of course, yes.
I remember there was a time when I was in a room with, I guess, one of the detectives, and they had literally brought out sheets of paper with like kind of like a male body and a female body, but it was like a drawing, and it was like point to where he touched you at, point to like different things that he did, and very detailed. And I feel like that was almost as traumatic, or not more, like maybe even more traumatic, having to go through it, reliving it through the courts.
Yes. Wow. I've heard many, sexual survivors, assault survivors say that.
Right. Yes. It's tough. But the other thing that I would say is, even after that, he did end up going to prison for only 5 years, but still something. Sometimes people, they don't get anything.
Yes, yes.
But when that 5th year came around, I remember, and honestly, even throughout that time, being so anxious, so nervous, like my mom said, not even be able to walk outside, always feeling like I'm being watched or someone's following me. So it was very hard in that sense, and after everything happened to me, I didn't think that relationships for me would ever be the same. Like, I didn't think I would be able to have an actual normal relationship with someone, or that I would even have sex,
Right, yes.
So it's like, these are some things I felt like would not be something for me, that would not be possible later on in life. I was in counseling, and I'm glad that my mom is not someone who does not believe in counseling.
Yes.
She's a counselor herself.
Absolutely.
So that really did help me.
Yes.
And it's something that even throughout life I continue to always go and always encourage people to go, because it's someone other than like a family member. Or friend who doesn't really have that emotional or like, connection
attachment.
to you.
Yes.
So them giving you honest feedback, and the professionals.
Yes.
But I'd say that's the hardest thing. So I have come to terms now that even though it's tough for me to come to certain things or to talk about my story, it's very important. And I'll just kind of quickly say something about me being a resident director. I work at a community college, Northampton Community College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And for our RAs, we train them. And one of the trainings that they go through is a bystander training, which is quite literally something where they learn about a lot of different sexual assault cases that happen on college campuses. And at the end of that, we do a exercise with them that makes it very real and personal for them. And after the exercise, they are able to share stories if they want to. And this past year, we just started the school year. This past year when we were in training, literally I feel like by the end of the training, everyone was crying and sobbing. We had to bring in a counselor because we just wanted to make sure it's okay. And then afterwards, because we didn't want them to quit, we took them for Rita. It was like, let's just make sure you guys are okay. But I think from being in that and just hearing how many people go through, our staff is predominantly females, but even the 5 or so men that we have, they were also, even if they didn't decide to share their story, they resonated with it. And some of the people, their stories were just so traumatizing. So it's like, I don't know. It's
a
tough.
Traumatic experience, And those pictures sometimes never stop playing, And but tell me, how does your faith, the part now? We know the professional and the psychological, but you had a Christian counselor. How did that help? How did that add?
Well, for me,
to healing?
it really helped. For one, I went to a church in Smyrna, Georgia called High Point Christian Tabernacle. And when I say I had an awesome support system, like at that church, they have what they call care leaders. So because the church was getting much bigger, everybody can't have access to the pastors. So they have these care leaders. Absolutely. And the care leaders go by like what your last name is. So maybe I would be the care leader for people from A to D last names. So the care leaders would put on monthly events, or they would connect with another care leader, and they would compete with them for different things so that people in the church would get to know each other. And we would stay connected like a family. So I had an awesome care group leader. Her name was Beverly Kennedy. She would call and check up on me. I was one of the members that was at the church for a long time. So for me, I had access to my pastors. When this incident happened, I was able to call them on the telephone. The pastor prayed for us. He spoke with my husband, gave him direction, things like that. So I think that having the support from and background from your church, but for me, I had to go on my faith, because sometimes when I went to church, like now I felt different. I felt like everybody knew our situation or our story, and now because I have these insecurities and these trust issues, it's like I felt so distant.
Yes,
it wasn't
yes.
like people was not trying to reach out or to help.
But you would be withdrawn as a result of that, because that is a trust issue.
Right,
it is
right.
a trust issue.
And then also for us, like, people don't understand when something like this happens in the family, it actually breaks things down. Me and her father already didn't have the best relationship. And I really didn't want her going over there anyway.
Yeah.
So after this incident,
yeah.
I was like, no, she's not going over there. So basically, it brought up another court situation where I kept her away. Well, I said that she can go visit, but the psychologist basically said that allowing her to go back in the home right now would be re-traumatizing, going back in that area. So initially he started, like, him and his family would go to the hotel for the weekend and be with her, but then he said it was too expensive, so he started back taking her in that environment, and she wasn't ready, and I could see when she came home some of the signs, and so I stopped letting her go over there. So then we had this huge court battle,
and he didn't understand that.
And that's the thing. It's like, I guess too, for him, when I did notice, it appeared that he started drinking more. Like, this started having an effect on him too.
Guilt.
Because I can say I know her father loves her.
Yes.
You know what I'm
right.
saying?
Yes.
Does he make the best decisions? No. But what parent does?
Yeah.
I don't always make the best decisions. So, but it caused something totally different to happen. And I was really shocked that he did do the court thing against us. So we went to court, and during the court time, that was the time my father was battling with cancer, and I was getting ready to go to New Jersey, and I went to court, and I ended up getting locked up because I didn't let her go to her dad's house. And
for trying to protect your daughter.
Right.
What do you do when your daughter says, "Mommy, I don't want to go"?
Right.
You know, it's like I'd rather go to jail than to let her go.
The judge basically said, so you're going to choose to listen to the psychologist over me for this court order? And so, I mean, you have the documentation saying that she's diagnosed with PTSD.
Yes.
You know what happened to her. You know where it happened at. Like, common sense should, I would think, kick in at some point.
And you know what? It's even more, you would think professionally that he would have had enough experience with psychologists to understand what post-traumatic syndrome is for a child. You know, especially in that. Like, I mean, you have to be insensitive. Why wouldn't you rule in her favor? At this point now, it's not the father
Right, the
That you
child should
can't. You should be worried about. You should be worried about the child. You know, she was already in his care, and this
Right.
happened, and now she's got to face like the same.
A
the same-
lifetime
yeah.
of-
So you want her to go back. You don't even want to give her time. You should tell the dad, listen, you can have visits, but you have to come where she is.
Right,
You
right.
know. So I don't that they're not trained. Maybe now, maybe some of them are
Maybe.
more. I don't know, but. At the expense of the child has always come first. You put a mother in jail if the mother doesn't put the child 1st, and here you are being put in jail because you did put her first and
Right.
her
And
feelings.
that particular judge was actually rated, I think, the 3rd worst judge in the entire country. And she was known to favor for the male side and not for mothers. So.
Wow. So, yeah, you know what? There are people who sit in high places, but you don't know what their life experiences have been that have
Right.
kind of designed their thoughts, their thinking process. So obviously there was a problem there. I don't know whether
Right.
she was a mom or what, or actually bonded with any of her children that you would not, because that's just motherly instinct.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Even like when they were locking me up, like some of the deputies, they were crying, they were in tears because
They understood.
It was as if I was a criminal, and literally they had to like chain me, like my legs, like I had my heels on and everything, and they
Are
had
you
to put
kidding
the chains
me?
on
Just
my.
you would have walked there and said, "Listen, you know, well, you don't need. I don't need a muzzle. Just let me walk directly to what cell." And
Right, so they had to. So leaving
my
the court,
goodness.
they had to put me the chains on my legs and on my hands behind my back, and the chains on my waist. And then when we got downstairs, it was like a van with a bunch of other women
that
that
you
were
had to
in
get in.
prison,
Oh, my
and so I had to get in, and they had to attach me to the other women. And so when we got to the jail, people were saying, "Are you an attorney? Did they lock up an attorney?"
I know you come in there dressed to the nines, articulate, educated, and then they put. Oh my goodness!
But going back to what you said about your faith, so when I got in the jail, it was late that night, and then the next morning I wake up. So we were on these bunks, and the lady above me on the bunk was a pastor's daughter.
Oh my goodness!
And so we ended up praying and doing praise and worship in the jail.
What? Oh my goodness! And what was she in for?
She was in for, she had been drinking, and she had just stopped her car in a parking lot because she knows she had drunk too much. So she fell asleep behind the wheel, and the police officer came and knocked on the car door, and they asked her why she had stopped, and she said, because I was drinking too much and I shouldn't be driving. And they said, but because you're behind the wheel of the car, had you been sitting on the other side asleep, we wouldn't have to take you in, but because you've been behind the wheel of the car, we have to take you in. So just to see all these things and to have that experience, and it's funny because while I was there, a client that I had just did an assessment on for counseling, she came in and she saw me, and so then everybody figured out that I was like a counselor. So they was like, "Hey doc," and it was like everybody was all sitting around my bunk, and
Patience right there in the. But you know what? Isn't that something? Because I understand that there are people in prison who a lot of them are there who have been sexually assaulted before they got to prison, but are also being sexually assaulted within the prison system. So there's so much a need for counseling and understanding. People need to be missed just because they're criminals, and people are criminals oftentimes because of the experiences that they've had that have turned them into different, like they say, hurting people hurt people. So that's amazing. But I'm glad you two haven't lost sight of your faith, that you still continue to trust in God, because we're not promised that, well, sin is innate in man, and there are different things that bring it out that cause men to sin, and we can be the victims of other people's, demented thinking, and but we still hold on to the faith that God is able to do all things.
Always, always.
He's able to heal, he's able to deliver, and he takes us on a journey and brings it for a greater purpose. I mean, he can use it. He didn't say it would be good. He said he'll cause things to work together for good. Not that they would be good, but the end result is that he'll use it for good. And look at how many people that you all are blessing by what you do. But tell us quickly a little bit about the foundation that you've established.
So basically,
Precious Diamonds.
Initially it started in Georgia, and it was called Jesus Crew Diamonds. And so that's when we did the puppetry arts, and we would go around and we had our community, everybody in our community set up to help their own community.
Oh, nice.
So here we are actually just starting this. It's just been a couple of months since we decided to reinvent ourselves. What they say, reintroducing ourselves.
All right, I heard about that relaunch.
Allow me to reintroduce
myself. All right. Oh, wonderful. And that pretty nice bag that you have there with us.
We brought this bag as a thank you for allowing us to be on your show.
Oh my goodness, I'm so honored that
my son actually made in his graphic arts class.
Beautiful.
And because we feel like our business should be a family affair, that everyone is affected by sexual assault. When one person in your family is affected, it affects everyone. So it's a problem, not just for me, but it's a problem for my son, my husband, the cousins, and everybody, because now we're all put in a position where we have to support her for the rest of her life, and we're got to support anybody else that this happens to. And we also especially have to support the little ones that's growing up that's not even aware that something like this could happen. See, Diamond happened to be special in her area because she had a mother that worked with sex offenders that told her things like this. If anybody ever tried to do this to you, I was very clear with her that this is not what is normal. So if something like this ever happens to you, you need to tell me right away. Whereas a lot of times people are afraid, they don't know how to talk to their children about stuff like that. So this is what we do. We help people, and we go out and we talk to kids, and we talk to teenagers, and we talk to families about all of this. We go to churches and stuff like that because sometimes it's taboo to talk about sexual assault and domestic violence in the church.
Unfortunately. But yeah, and you bring out another point. I think like the church that you were going to that had all those different resources, that we need to start thinking. We have auxiliaries, but we need to bring in some resources to help people, because life is real, and even the word is applicable. It should be applicable to everyday life, you know, because the Bible deals with every situation. If you read about, David, who Absalom killed his stepbrother because of what he did to his sister. You know, I mean, there's stories, everything is in there that deals with everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and shows how, how we humanly deal with things, but how God would have us to deal with things, So it's not as though, this is far from the church, and we should know that, and I'm praying and hoping, even by exposing you two to this and showing what the church can do, that there's a lot the church can do, and there are a lot more people that are in the church that can function, and I hope that will help other people, besides, I love conferences and I love prayer gatherings and things like that, but there are other things that we can also do along with the prayer and along with the conferences to help many of the women, because you can almost go down a pew and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, it's like how many women have been affected by this, and still need some practical solutions.
Yeah, and also if you think about it in the other area, because I never really thought about it like this until somebody approached me. They were like, well, do you do trainings for like pastors and the pastors, committees and stuff like that? And I was like, well, we could do something like that, but I was thinking about that it was to teach them how to teach people in the church, but they were saying, no, we've had some incidences at our church with some of the leaders. Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah,
it's true.
Some of the leaders that we don't know how to handle.
Right.
And so we need somebody that can come and speak on this, what the right thing and
The
wrong.
wrong thing is to do.
And
Isn't
I
there
was just
something?
like, wow, so these are leaders in your church?
Yeah, people, and they shouldn't be leaders after that. I mean, they should get help.
But if you look at
Taken
what's
down.
happened in the Catholic community,
I know, and it's been happening for years.
right?
Years. Goes
And people
way, way
going
back.
without, like, because of that, the way that community set up, going without even being,
Acknowledged or
it's not
It's just
even
covered up.
Yeah,
Yep,
it's just
not
covered
talked
up.
about.
It's not even going through the jail process or the court
No.
process, the procedures or something like that. It's a whole different system.
Yeah.
How could
It's
we get
reached all the way up to the Pope. I mean,
Yes.
tell them that he has to intervene almost at different times and make
Right.
judgments. It's something. Yeah, it is. It's so spread so far. Widespread all over. In there's no denomination religiously
Right,
that
none.
hasn't been affected by it.
None.
There's none. It's
precious diamond.
all right. Well, we want to close out this part 2 segment with some encouragement from both Tamika and Diamond to our viewers today. What you could say to them, to someone who may have been that, to a mom who may be in that, have had experience what you experienced, with her daughter or child, and Diamond as the child who is going to that. You can talk to other young women or young women or young men who have gone through it, that to show that you can get through it. That you take time to.
Okay, I'll just first start with saying that it's possible for you to overcome this. I feel like even though we go through such rough times, like God would not allow us to go through certain things if he didn't have a way out for us. So you can do it. It's gonna be hard. It's not an easy task, but you can get through it with help. This is what we're here for. And we will be putting information out for other resources, and we'll probably be coming up with some trainings within the next year. But we are here to support our community. And when I say our community, it's not
That's all right.
it's not just the community of African Americans. It's the community of people. We're on earth here to help one another.
Very good. Thank you. And Diamond.
So the one thing that I would say, kind of piggybacking off of what she's saying, is you have help. I know some people may not have direct support from family members, but there's plenty of hotlines, plenty of organizations out there that if you are going through, or if you know someone who is going through, please reach out. We're in such a bad time for mental health right now, where suicide is so detrimentally high. So just remembering that you have help, you have support. Yes, it is tough, but the Lord will never leave you nor forsake you, and he is by your side the whole time. He will get you through.
Thank you so much. On that note, we'll end the Well After Hours and thank our viewing audience for being with us. Remember again, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m., come gather with us around the Well After Hours. Thank you. God bless you.
Bye.